Wow. I hope you understood what I said. I said keep an open mind, so keep the doors open also. Okay, my dear friends, what a delight and joy to be here. Let's do a few ahms or ohms. Deep breath. One more. So my dear friends, I want to say this is a very historic moment. I'll tell you why. And I forget which year it was. Of course, when my hair was black, long, long time ago. In 2002 or 3, I remember the three of us were here, and that's when we announced that we are the Interfaith Amigos. And my goodness, after that time, Spirit has been so gracious. We've traveled all over the country. I think over 250 presentations all over. Overseas, wonderful national media attention. God has been very gracious. Why do I say it's historic? Because today also, we are almost starting a new chapter. You know, Rabbi Ted Falcon is missing. He's absolutely fine. But he has wisely decided to retire. And with his blessing, we have a wonderful Rabbi Laura Duhan Kaplan. As the other one-third of the Interfaith Amigos. And if you look at if you have one of those papers, her entire biography is there. A great scholar, very learned, very popular. She has won many national awards. And, she might think I'm flattering her, but I've been to her Vancouver School of Theology. She's very popular there. Give her another good hand. And, of course, my dear friend, Brother Don Mackenzie. Oh, my. A real, pure gentleman, filled with grace, filled with, my God, the powers of reconciliation. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking, do you remember those times I and Rabbi Ted Falcon would have a lot of discussions over Israel-Palestine? You see, the Interfaith Amigos never avoided the elephant in the room. Talk about it. Connect with it. So sometimes I and Rabbi Ted would have discussions about Israel-Palestine, and sometimes they would get very vigorous. And he would intervene and say, before you guys quit or say, no, enough is enough, he would say, hey, guys, this is money in the bank. Keep on talking. Keep on going deeper, deeper, deeper. And we did. And from that, 3 books, we published 3 books. But of course, we made no money on them. But he meant it metaphorically. But I love Rumi. Rumi has this wonderful saying, you might not make money here in doing these beautiful, righteous deeds, but if you become quiet, you can listen to the clinking of gold coins accumulating for you up there. So we have become very rich in that sense. Okay, give both of them another hand. And before I pass it on to Isla for some beautiful music, just a few words you want to say, anything you want to say. Of course, keep it brief, but anything you want to say.
Thank you. Is this on? You can hear me? Right there. It's overwhelming to be here for Judy and me, really. I don't know how many times I've been in this room, but we formed our association really right here. And it's been a very deep time, and we're so happy to have Laura with us and enriching us and taking us in some new directions. But thank you, Sally Joe and Jamal and everybody for coming tonight and giving us a chance to continue to share things we've learned. So thank you.
A
Pretty much the same message. I'm so delighted to be here, to be looking at all of your smiling faces. I appreciate the hospitality extended by Sally Jo and Jamal and the entire community, because I know it takes a village to have an interfaith community sanctuary. And I'm very glad to see the three of us here to talk in person. Thanks.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. 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 Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai
poetess here. Do you want to recite a poem, Ember? If you want, oh, come on over. She's our resident poetess, Ember. Which poem do you want to recite?
I slept and dreamt.
Go ahead.
I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I woke and found that life was service. I served. Service was joy.
Okay, one more time.
I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I woke and found that life was service. I served. Service was joy.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Ember. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now I just want to introduce our wonderful, my colleague, not Reverend, sister. No, I'm saying, she always told me, don't call me Reverend. She's okay. So I almost said Reverend. No, Sister Sally Jo. And I want to tell you very honestly, what'd you say? Oh, yes, that's right. Sally Jo is one of the most capable human beings I know. And of course, she'll feel very flattered. I'm flattering her. It's the truth. And she is really a servant of service. Ember, you mentioned service. She embodies service. So now she's going to grill us. So be gentle with us in your service of grilling us.
What he didn't say is that I'm a teacher and a middle school teacher. So I can think of some really good questions, although they weren't all mine. Well, again, welcome. I'm going to step up here, and I'm going to be asking questions to our esteemed guests here, one at a time, and they'll all get to answer at least 4 different questions. All right, and some of them will be similar, some will be very different. So I will kind of spread the joy here, and I'll sit down as soon as I ask the question, and then they'll get to have a couple minutes to answer. So Laura, we're going to start with you. I don't want to say ladies first, but I did want Laura to go first for some odd reason. All right, but I'm going to ask her a difficult question. You ready? My first question is, why is it difficult for a tradition like Judaism to enter into interfaith dialogue?
Great question. In terms of our spiritual tradition, it really should not be difficult. We have, even in our earliest biblical tradition, prophets and teachers who say that interfaith exchange and interfaith worship and interfaith community is exactly what makes our people, our community strong. The prophet Isaiah, the prophet Zechariah, both of them advocated a multi-faith temple in Jerusalem. And we also have the opposite perspective, that closing ranks and being very nationalistically particular is what keeps the community safe. So it's an ongoing debate, and there has always been a thread, a stream, eager for interfaith dialogue. I think the forces that maybe pull us away from interfaith dialogue, I said forces, maybe I mean force, is fear. When we find ourselves a religious minority, when we find ourselves in Christian spaces where people know few actual Jews, but a lot of badly interpreted New Testament teachings about Jews, we feel afraid, and we're worried that if we try to engage in interfaith dialogue, we might be maligned, we might be put down, we might end up having more bad things than good things come out of the dialogue. And I also think that sometimes parents are afraid that if they expose their children to multiple religious traditions, then the children might, I don't want to say the children might reject, but the parents might feel rejected, that the most precious spiritual legacy that they were trying to pass on has been put to the side. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Dawn, you thought you were going to get off easy. Now I have a difficult question for you. Why is it difficult for a tradition like Christianity to enter into interfaith dialogue?
Thanks, Sally Jo, and thank you, Rabbi Laura, and for your thoughtfulness. Yeah. One thing I forgot to mention is that Judy and I live in Minneapolis, and we used to live here for 18 years, but that's why it's one of the reasons it's such a big deal to be back here. And one of the things, I'll bring you two reports from Minnesota. One thing is that everyone in Minnesota is not above average. But we are facing a lot of challenges, as you know. Two of them especially relating to the murder of George Floyd, and then the more recent assassinations of a couple of public servants. And so that has both challenged us and given us energy to open doors into who we are and what we need to be. So another reason to be back for a place where we're thinking about important and substantive things. Okay, so the question is, why is it Christianity, what makes it difficult? In our work, we say that we're all interconnected. We're all part of the same thing. But that's a hard thing to get at because it has to do with getting below that floor of the ego to that place where we can open our hearts to the lives of other people and to God. Music can do it, poetry, the preciousness of relationships, but religion, and especially Christianity, as long as it insists on being separate and superior, cannot do it. And that has been one of the most important drivers for me as a Christian religious leader, to try to help people understand how Christianity has set up that barrier to cooperation. And it is very, very strong. And that's been one of the reasons why I've been so happy to be a part of this group. Yeah.
Beautiful. Very, very courageous answers, both of you. So Jamal, you may be surprised by this, but I want you to try to explain to us, why is it difficult for a tradition like Islam to enter into interfaith dialogue?
I think the best answer is silence. I don't know. But actually, Islam, in theory, like other traditions, is quite interfaith friendly. So what is the problem? I think it's, to me, embodied in a wonderful statement by Mahatma Gandhi, who said, were it not for Christians, I would be a Christian. So the problem is not so much Islam or this Judaism or Christianity or Hinduism. It's really, in the case of Islam, it's Muslims. And what do I mean by that? I mean, some of us don't have that level of consciousness. So like Rumi says, so many of us misinterpret the scriptures. And I can go on and on about that. I love the words of Rumi, who says, a bee and a wasp, they drink from the same flower. A bee and a wasp drink from the same flower. One produces nectar, the other one produces a sting. So it really depends on your level of consciousness, number one, and what is your intention. Okay, just a couple of other reasons. One is, from our experience, we found that, we don't want interfaith because the real reason is they're scared. I think you're mentioning that their son or their family members, they will veer in that direction and it'll dilute their own religion. But you see, historically, over the centuries, people have explained that, and let me just put it this way. If I, as a Muslim, I study different religions, this waters my own Islamic roots and makes me a better Muslim and a more complete, developed human being, which is why we say interfaith is not about conversion. It is about completion. That famous comparative religion professor, Houston Smith. Anybody know Houston Smith? He passed away. He said, and he gave this example. You can look at the Quran from one angle. But if you look at the Quran from other angles also, the angles of other traditions, you have a more complete understanding of your own religion by studying interfaith. And last reason, you know, people are so scared, or let me put it this way. Some people are determined to share in a very aggressive way the good news. So when they go to interfaith, their main intention is, of course, it's very nice, all this stuff is very nice, but if you really listen to me, mine is a little bit better than yours. But I just want to end with this wonderful metaphor, parable that I always talk about, which my teachers told me to ponder on again and again and again and again. There was a compassionate, sincere monkey who would go to neighborhood ponds and lakes to pluck the fish out of water to save it from a watery grave. Just be with that. Thank you.
So my next question is for Don, Reverend Don. What do you think is the biggest barrier to interfaith understanding in general? And what would help us to overcome this?
You know, and I think my passion for this work and the work we've done the last 25 years or so has made me realize that ignorance and my own ignorance is one of the things that's at the root of this. We don't know our own traditions really very well, and we don't know other ones very well. And if we did, I think we would realize that in spite of the particulars of the traditions, there are universals that connect us. They transcend the boundaries of our traditions. And I think ultimately, if we go deeply enough, we find we're all just trying to get home. Not where we came from, but where we're going. And we could be helping each other. The other thing, ignorance is one. The other thing, the second one, is to understand the difference. In Christianity, anyway, I'll call it religiosity, which is an almost unconscious emanation of the structures and so forth, without realizing how they can eclipse, especially authoritarian structures, can eclipse the substantive teachings, in the case of Christianity, of Jesus of Nazareth. And they are so important, far more important than those structures. In fact, if we understood how those things are always in tension, I think we would be in a much better place. And of course, so the question, how do we deal with that? Education. Religious literacy is so crucial. And of course, we don't get that in public education. We could. It's not about converting, as Jamal said. It's about helping us understand our traditions, those universals, the particulars, what we're trying to do, and how we could be helping each other. So education, I would say, is, and that's what we're trying to do. Amen.
Beautiful, beautiful. Next question, Laura. Over the ages and even today, powerful political leaders have frequently used religious and cultural diversity to separate, divide, and conquer people. What is the best way to counter this? I told you they were going to...
Right? I wanted to start with something funny, but it's not a funny question. I think it's very important to act at the local level. The media that has such a far, wide-ranging reach, newspapers, much of television, a lot of radio, is owned by large corporations who, no matter what their politics are, understand that it's in their interest to ally with the powerful who are distorting things and using some of our most precious cultural resources and traditions against us. So I think we need to act through those relationships that perhaps are not so saturated with the media. So, for example, if we belong to spiritual communities, that's a place of learning and teaching where we get symbols and we share information that becomes part of the way that we think. If some small measure of interfaith activity could become part of the regular work of many spiritual communities, and I realize, to use a Christian metaphor, I'm preaching to the choir in this room, but perhaps each of you could preach to another choir about this. Do something together that is a shared interest. Feeding the hungry, something everyone is committed to. Do some kind of animal rescue project, something that stirs the hearts in quite a simple and non-complicated interreligious way in people. Learn together if you're willing. Invite each other. Invite into your home people who might practice a different tradition, but whose lives are intersecting with yours, though you've never discussed religion and never had them in your home before. Create the relationships and the linkages so that when you hear negative talk, you can say to yourself, you can use a little bit of critical thinking, and you can say to yourself, wow, all the Muslims I know are not like that at all. And I'll add one more thing. It's just so important to use critical thinking. And when you hear about extremists, to say, well, you know what? There are extremists in my tradition, and I don't like them. They're making trouble for me. Probably that's what's happening for most people in other traditions. I feel for them. I will reach out to them. Maybe just a simple email thinking of you at a difficult time. But there's so much that we can do to build a social infrastructure, right, that resists and moves us forward. Thanks.
Very thoughtful answers. Excellent. Okay, Jamal. How do you engage people who believe religion itself is the problem and they don't want anything to do with it at all?
I would say you're right. Actually, I've had this experience a number of times, but I tell them that if you say that, that by itself becomes a religion, that belief system. So what is the problem with religion, the institution of religion? And of course, we have done a lot of traveling, asked a lot of young people, and people who don't have an attachment to an institution. They're very old by this time. So they have said that there are several problems where religion goes astray. For example, the first one they say is exclusivity. So how do you tackle that? If you look at the religious texts in Islam, for example, there's a wonderful saying by Prophet Muhammad, to overcome your biases, and this is in every tradition, know thyself. Get to know yourself. Do compassionate witnessing on who you really are, and you'll become aware of your prejudices, your biases that this is the best religion, is superior to everything. This is actually a reflection not of your soul. This is a reflection of your ego. Or for example, in the religious texts, in Islamic spirituality, and I was asked to focus on this, is just meditate on this. Wonderful example from nature, from religious texts. All the rivers, they flow into the ocean. Jamal, you're following one river, but don't mistake the river for the ocean. So my point is the religious texts that can help us is spirituality to overcome exclusivity. What's the second one? We found people said, there's so much of violence in the scriptures. I don't care what religion it is. So much of violence. You know, it's interesting. The antidote is also in the religious texts. So, for example, one reason for violence is uncontrolled anger. How do you deal with that? The Quran says, first thing is, lower your voice. Lower your voice. You know, Rumi, when he read this, he goes into trance. He says, he utters, it is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. And again, another religious person says, besides lowering your voice, be very careful of the tone of your voice. The tone of your voice can be more important than the content of what you're saying. It comes from religious texts. Third one, unequal status of women. Brother Don, what is that example you always gave about women that, I forget, it is a very, 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 very funny one. Anyhow, it's a question of observing yourself, becoming aware. It is not just a religious problem, it's a cultural problem. But it can be healed by compassionate self-witnessing. Another one is, the fourth one they said was, how come there's so much of homophobia? The way I got over my homophobia is a verse from the Quran that God has created diversity for one reason, that you might get to know the other on a human level. So when I meet some imams who are so much against homosexuals, I said, how many gay people do you know? Zilch. Okay, I'm talking on and on. Let me end with one thing. How critical it is, or to understand, what does it mean to have faith? You know, this is a very mysterious world. I'm 75. It occurs to me now, I hope to live a long life, but where am I going? Everything is a mystery. You know, sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. It's really a mystery. So one needs faith in something higher than human personality. So I love this story, and I end with that, where an agnostic father tells his child, son, there is no God. There is no God. And the son who's trained to question says, Father, how do you know? And the father says, son, you got to take it on faith.
That's a great way to end that little answer. Very good. All right. Dawn, what insights can you offer to help heal the Arab-Israeli conflict? I told you.
Is there a more important question right now? Just as background, I spent the summer of 1965, 60 years ago, working in Cairo on a college program, and my colleagues there wanted to know what I thought of Israel. And I had read Exodus, and I thought it was wonderful. I mean, I don't mean to be funny about that. It was thrilling to read a story about Jews who were feeling fulfilled and so forth. But then I learned about Palestinians. And after Judy and I got married, we lived in Lebanon, next to Lebanon's largest Palestinian refugee camp. And we had Palestinian students and so forth. So we're trying to see both sides. And I think it's important, first of all, not to take sides, but not to be neutral. These are all human beings. Every person involved with this horrible conflict is a human being. But there are a couple problems that need to be named, and I think that's the first step from my point of view. The first one is that the Christian repudiation of Judaism has meant that there needs to be safety and security for Jewish people in this world. And I say repudiation, meaning, I'm not saying that Christianity is devaluing Judaism. The big picture is Christianity has said Judaism has no value. We have to name that truth, which of course is not true. What could be further from the truth? Jesus was a rabbi. Jesus was not a Christian. He was messianic, let's say. He seemed to be anointed for a healing purpose, but he was not a Christian, and I think we need to just keep that in mind. I don't say that to make Christian people feel guilty. Guilty doesn't get us anywhere. I say it to give us the chance to raise an awareness about something that could lead to healing. The other thing, of course, is the question of revenge, which to my mind is a feature of unrestrained masculinity. The world feels that the power belongs to the revenge, but in truth, as we have said to each other, revenge is like drinking poison and hoping the other guy will die. What is needed is reconciliation, which requires, from my point of view, far more strength, courage, and so forth than any kind, because it requires us to be vulnerable and live into something where we actually give up something, but we get something. And in the case of the Arab-Israeli conflict, it would mean getting to a place where we can help where they can help each other. And they should be. There could be something wonderful happening there. But instead, there's this horrible conflict. So I think those are features of the situation that we need to keep in mind as we're thinking about our elected officials, what our foreign policy is in the United States, and so forth. Yeah.
Thank you. Wow. These guys are good, aren't they? Wow. A+s along here. Okay, Laura, what insights can you offer to help the Arab-Israeli conflict?
Well, first I'll riff off something that Don said. I also liked Leon Uris's book, Exodus, until I read all of his other books and realized they were all exactly the same formula, same plot, different historical neighborhood. It's a very, very important question that you're asking, Sally Jo. It is the question that is tearing apart our own Jewish communities as we become increasingly polarized between those who feel that they are giving everything up if they don't say my Israel right or wrong, and those people who feel that they are giving everything up if they do say my Israel right or wrong. There's a great deal of tension, and there's a great deal of people taking very binary, rigid positions, not swayed by current events, but just by what they think they ought to believe and what makes them feel most secure and least afraid. If you get good information about what is actually happening in the land, you will see that people, so many people there, are not living into the same binary perceptions that we are living into here. There are collaborative Israeli-Palestinian organizations, right, within the boundaries of Greater Israel that are working together to resist the government's militarism. There are mutual support Jewish and Palestinian organizations in the West Bank. There are Palestinians who luckily escaped from Gaza and are trying to work together wherever they are with their Israeli colleagues to speak, to get out clearer information. So the situation that we have in the land is so complex, and most people would be shocked to hear the ways that we speak about the conflict here. And I think it is very, very important to follow the lead of the peace activists in the land. I also think, I'm going to say two more things. I think that when discussing or taking some kind of local action here around the conflict. It's really, really important to live into one of the things that Jamal talks about all the time, which is doing the inner inconvenient work. Right? If you are a Jewish person who feels that genocide of the Jewish people is so fresh for you, and you don't want to admit that the state of Israel might be carrying out a genocide, and you run out of the room as soon as you hear that word, it will be very hard to have a productive discussion. And it'll be very hard to do any kind of collaborative action in the name of life. So we do have to look at ourselves and our triggers. And the last thing I want to say comes from the writer Neil Kaplan, who, as far as I know, is not related to me, but I like his books, so I wish he were. He says, in addition to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict happening in the land and in the region, we also have another Israeli-Palestinian conflict which happens outside the land by people whose grief and rage push them into these polarized kinds of positions. And we add on to the horrors that are already happening by amplifying divisions within our own community. And many of us feel that we may well be powerless to influence our country's policy, but we are not powerless to influence the kind of discourse and collaboration in support of life for everyone in the land that we can do here. Thank you.
And no surprise, Jamal, what insights can you offer to help us heal the Arab-Israeli conflict?
Well, if I was smart or intelligent, I would just say, again, nothing at all, because so many beautiful things have been said. And if I add on to that, it's almost like overdoing it. By the way, how many of you here study Taoism? Beautiful. You know, there's a wonderful thrust of the main insight of Taoism. They say one of the main wisdoms of Taoism is that the biggest problems human beings have, they just don't know when to stop. They overdo it. So whatever I say might be overdoing it. You know, in fact, in Zen, they say it's like you draw a snake, and then you overdo it. You draw legs onto the snake like caterpillars. You're overdoing it. But I do want to say just a few things. You know, the Interfaith Amigos, we went to Israel, Palestine twice, right? Twice we went. There's one insight I heard that really touched my heart. That there were discussions between very progressive rabbis and imams. And they said, let's start on this premise. This land we're fighting over, this land does not belong to the Jews. It does not belong to the Muslims. It does not belong to the Christians. It belongs to God. Let's start with that premise. So just be with that. This land we're fighting over, this is a human artificial claim. It really belongs to spirit, to divinity. You know, there's a verse in the Quran, Allah has spread out the earth as a carpet so you may walk therein on spacious paths. All these artificial divisions we have. We even divide up the sky. You know, this part of the sky is ours. It's all artificial. That's one point, without overdoing it. The second point is, there's wonderful insight in all the traditions. There is truth, and there's truth of convenience. I am biased. You know, I'm pro-Palestinian. It's just because of my bias, my background. So I have to be very careful. Is this a truth or truth of convenience that I'm saying? Suicide bombing is wrong. I have to say it. It's really wrong. Occupation is wrong. Genocide is wrong. But to have the grace and the courage to really say it. But the most important point is, you know, what's happening in Israel-Palestine. Yeah, sure, it's about Israel-Palestine, but it's really about our lives. Meaning, we all face the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in our own families, actually. So let me go outside I'm just thinking, in fact, right now, outside the monotheistic traditions, I love to study Buddhism. What did the Buddha say? Buddha said, hate never yet dispelled hate. Hate never yet dispelled hate. Only love dispels hate. We know the formula. Only love dispels hate, but we are human beings. It's very difficult for us to connect with that. In the Quran, there's a wonderful verse that when there is prolonged oppression, helplessness, hopelessness, fear, anger, the Quran says, it's not that the eyes become blind. It's not that the eyes become blind. The hearts become blind. When the hearts become blind, how do you open these hearts? The Sufi, the Islamic mystics tell you, all the traditions tell you, only that which comes from the heart can open another heart. So my insight is, wow, in my own family, extended family, with people I don't like, people I hate, whatever, to realize that only that which comes from the heart can open another heart. So it's a very difficult question, but it's a question which needs to be answered by each one of us with our own Israel-Palestinian problem. The last thing I want to say is a wonderful verse from Prophet Muhammad who said, when you see injustice, when you experience injustice, use your hands. By that he meant, do something, get involved. If it's just voting, writing letters to your legislators, but do something. So use your hands, do something. If you cannot do that, Prophet Muhammad said, use your mouth. Say something, protest about it. And if you can't do that, then the Prophet Muhammad said, yes, pray from your heart. But he said, I'm sorry to tell you, in this case, in the face of oppression, this is the weakest form of faith. Do something, speak out, and of course, pray. Thank you.
Okay, and the last question also goes to all three of you, and I'm sure you'll answer it all differently in your own way. And that is, what has been your most important learning from your work to date with interfaith understanding? Let's start with Don and go down the line.
Yeah, great question. And I shudder to think what I did not know before I started working. And I'm so happy to have had this chance to learn from my colleagues. I remember early on, probably circa 2002 or 2003, we were having one of our weekly conversations, and we happened to say, or it came out that we agreed that in our congregations, spirituality was the concern of one group, and social action was the concern of another. But there were rarely people who were concerned with both. That's simply a kind of a reality of what we saw as the practice of ministry at the time. And I've held that. And I think that in learning and doing things with these guys, I remember now Psalm 23. I'm talking about the beginning of the psalm now, if you think about it. The first part says, I have everything I need, which is something to think about, really. But then it says, there are spiritual practices, green pastures, still waters, and they restore my soul, that vast, uncharted territory, which Martin Buber said is simultaneous to the physical universe. But then the psalm says, I am led in paths of justice for the sake of God. Righteousness, justice. In other words, spiritual practices are essential to being prepared to do the work for justice. And doing the work for justice without spiritual practices often burns out. And so we need both. Both spiritual practice in terms of our individual meditation and so forth, but also our worship together. Our worship together, giving each other courage and wisdom for the road ahead. And so I take a lot of courage from that. And I think that if we could learn to do that, it would be so important. But doing it as individual congregations is good, but if we're not cooperating with other congregations, especially those that are different from ours, then we're not really going to have the impact we need in addressing the moral issues before the world today. We need to do, that's why interfaith is so important, to bring forward these things we've been talking about to help us learn to cooperate and help each other to address these things so that with maybe not just one voice, but with the voices of several different traditions, we can have an impact on helping the world to get to a better place. Yeah.
Same question.
When I first met the Interfaith Amigos in maybe the year 2008, I was already quite involved in interfaith work. In fact, they came as guests to our local Vancouver Jewish Christian dialogue gathering. And there was something about their work that I thought was unique and really spoke to me. And at the time, I didn't have the language for it, but now I do. Through interfaith work, I have learned how to be both a pluralist and a universalist at the same time. Right? A pluralist, not just in the sense of committed to a pluralistic society where there is space for all kinds of people to be safe and to flourish, but also religiously, to develop great respect for the symbols and the rituals and the sacred stories of different groups of people, and to understand that all of those symbols and traditions are incredibly important. They hold a people's history, their expressions of the great arts in that group. They're part of the language that people use to communicate with one another. They're really, really important. And at the same time, at least some of the symbols stir in the hearts of those who use them. Feelings of peace, feelings of yearning, feelings of love, feelings of connection with something greater than themselves, a community, an ineffable spirit, higher power, giant ecosystem of the planet, however they name it. The sum of the symbols and traditions point to something larger. And that is something that we hold precious in all of our traditions. And because one of our great rabbis, whose words are preserved in the Talmud, that great book of Jewish law and lore from approximately the year 600, Rabbi Akiva and Ben Azai are having a debate about what's the most important principle in the entire Jewish tradition. Rabbi Akiva says, of course, it's love your neighbor as yourself. Ben Azai says, no, it's something deeper than that. Something not complicated by wondering about who actually is your neighbor, and not complicated by wondering about whether you really do love your own self. Something simpler. It's the biblical verse, these are the generations of Adam, of Adam. We are all descended from the same parents. We, our species, is all one human family, and we are all yearning for those same things of the heart. Thanks.
Same question. Okay. So I just want to start by saying that, the Interfaith Amigos, it's been, almost 24, 25 years, I think we've been together. Travel all over the country. And we really did listen to the audiences in different universities, seminaries, etc., etc. And from that has arisen 3 books we wrote together. It was not easy. In fact, people would say, how did you write that book? Ted, who's very humorous, would say, well, I would write the first word, Don the second word, Jamal the third word. That's how we completed our book. So I just want to summarize the books that really gives us an understanding of our journey in interfaith. The first book is called Getting to the Heart of Interfaith. To really connect with the understanding of interfaith, it's a process. There are several stages. The first stage is, if I meet somebody who's of a different religion, the first stage is, number one, is to get to know the other on a human level. Don't start by talking about the religion or the politics. Get to know the other on a human level. I love that Christian saying, this universe is made out of stories, not atoms. The second one is to talk about what is the core teaching. So we thought that for Judaism, it's oneness. All traditions have that, but it's emphasized particularly in Judaism. In Christianity, it's unconditional love. In Islam, it's compassion. The third stage was, after we do that, to realize that if we have done those 2 stages, we can start talking about our holy books. They have 2 kinds of verses: particular verses and universal verses. Particular verses are in desperate need of historical and textual context. Universal verses are timeless, placeless. The problem becomes, if you take a particular verse from one tradition and compare that to a universal verse from my tradition, that's an unfair comparison. And that's what that was done during after 9/11 to denigrate Islam. The fourth one was, if we've done those 3 stages, is to become aware that we can start talking about difficult issues. From monotheistic traditions, we realized the biggest issue is the Arab-Israeli conflict. If we finish the 4th stage, the next 5th stage is, we can talk about this wonderful realization that all religions are a path to a shared universal. And the last stage of that book was, as was mentioned, we simply, it doesn't matter what your religion, what you believe, what your culture, we simply have to do spiritual practices. Okay, the 2 more books, I'll be very brief. Second book was called Religion Gone Astray. I've already mentioned that. From all the hands going up, young people, older people, why is it that there's so much of exclusivity in your religion? How come there's so much, number 2, of violence in your scriptures? How come there's so much of unequal status of women in your scriptures? How come there's so much of homophobia, not in the other's religion, in your own religion? That was the key point. And the last book we wrote was Finding Peace Through Spiritual Practices. It doesn't matter, again, what's your background, what's your level of consciousness. You simply have to do what you mentioned, the inner inconvenient work. And I'll just amplify that by talking about I feel the greatest threat is planetary degradation. We simply have to focus on earth care. And this has gone viral, that wonderful saying by that scientific advisor to President Carter, Gus Spaeth, I think is his name. He said, for 30 years, I've always thought the biggest environmental problems are loss of biodiversity, climate change, ecosystem collapse. And with 30 years of good science, we could take care of that, overcome that. He says, now I've realized after 30 years, the biggest environmental problems are not loss of biodiversity, climate change, ecosystem collapse. The biggest environmental problems are selfishness, greed, apathy, indifference. So spiritual practices are absolutely critical. That's the end of my sermon, friends.
All right. What do you think? Did they pass the test? Wow. Very, very beautiful. Now, if you all have thought of other questions, I don't know how you could have, but if you have, join us downstairs after the program very soon now, and you can ask your own questions to these people and to each other. But that was really awesome. All of you just wowed me, totally, and all of us. So thank you again. We're going to have some chanting, a little short meditation, and we'll send you all downstairs for some food and beverages in just a few minutes.
Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Shankara Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Shankara Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Uma Ramana Shiva Shankara Jaya Jaya Uma Ramana Shiva Shankara Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Shankara Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Shankara Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Uma Ramana Shiva Shankara Jaya Jaya Uma Ramana Shiva Shankara Jaya
Thank you so much, Isla. My dear friends, a very, very brief meditation. Just close your eyes. And kindly focus on the lowest part of your spine. And make an intention to send a beautiful cord of light, any color, from the base of the spine going down, way down, deep, deep, deep into Mother Earth, connecting us to the womb of Mother Earth. Feeling a sense of belonging, support, connectedness. And now, let go of that. Focus, please, on the crown of your head, the crown chakra, and make an intention to send a beautiful cord of light, any color, from the crown of the head upwards, way up, higher, higher, even higher, piercing the realms and connecting us to the heart of heaven. Feel that bonding, connection with mystery. And now let go of that. And this time focus on the heart, an amazing organ. That beautiful saying where Spirit says to each one of us, beloved one, says God or Goddess or Spirit. Spirit says, I cannot be contained in the space of the earth. I cannot be contained in the space of the heavens, but I can be contained in the space of the pure, loving heart. Just be with that. Divine heart is inside human heart. And here are two practices that Islamic mystics say are so powerful if we do it. The first one, both in meditation and waking hours, as often as possible, focusing on the boundless space of the heart and planting words of beauty, words like, I love you, or you are loved. Again and again, you can never overdo it, try it, no matter how awkward it might feel. I love you. With feeling, I love you, or you are loved, again and again and again and again. Just a few more times. I love you with feeling. You are loved. Letting go of that. And now from this wellspring of eternal love, healing, empowerment, transformation from inside the heart, focus on the heart and pour out through intention, light and love, pouring out from the heart. Making an intention to radiate, emanate from the heart, light and love. The mystics say the more light and love we pour out, the more light and love we become filled up with. It's a law, ancient, inexhaustible. Pouring out, radiating light and love. In meditation, also in waking hours. And let's bring this to a close by stop doing anything you were doing and just sing Bismillah for those who know. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. One last time. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallahu. La ilaha illallahu.
Again, thank you so much. Beautiful people. What a beautiful program. This has been very inspiring, I know, for all of us. I'm going to pass a plate around, and if you feel inspired and you feel generous, we would love to have you contribute to our wonderful upkeep of this beautiful house of worship and all the programs that we do and all the wonderful work that we do. You want to start here? Let's start here. And we'll just pass it around. And we do invite you downstairs after the program. If you can stay a little longer, we have some food and beverages and time to talk more to each other and to our guests, to our Interfaith Amigos, and to each other, many of whom we haven't seen each other in a long time. So feel free to connect downstairs, and we appreciate your patience. And it's cooled off, I see, and you want to pass it down the line for me? Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I was hoping you were here. Wasn't that beautiful? Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sally Joe, let's just do a closing. Let's do a closing off. May the blessings of God rest upon you. May God's peace abide with you. May God's presence illuminate your heart now and forevermore. My dear friends, the real service, the real program starts downstairs where you can meet these honorable guests right here. Laura, Dawn, and Judy, and others. Sorry.
Let them know. The temperature is much cooler downstairs as well.
Yes. And there's some snacks downstairs, but let's mingle. Thank you so much, my dear friends. Thank you.